Hey guys, I've been wanting to make this video for the last few days regarding the Bricks 2.0. I've been playing around with the RC2 just to get a feel for it. Um, and what I kind of got to is that I was so used to using frameworks, so used to using advanced thema with the enhancements in Bricks that using Bricks without any of those was quite difficult. Not because Bricks is not good. Bricks is a great page builder. It's just that the frameworks and enhancements make it even better and easier and more productive. But what I wanted to do is test Bricks without any of those to see where Bricks is currently at. And for some stuff, I was pleasantly surprised. Other stuff, I was a little disappointed. And the main one of those where I was disappointed is in how they manage colors. That has not changed since I got Bricks a couple of years ago when it was on version 1.2, I think it was 1.3. The colors, the way you manage colors in Bricks has not changed. I've given it zero love in Bricks 2.0, and I think it is an absolute weak point in this great page builder we call Bricks. So I think they really should do something. Look, it doesn't affect me because I use Advanced Thema and the color management in Advanced Thema is just brilliant. If Bricks looked at that and made theirs anywhere near as good as Advanced Thema's color manager, then it would be absolutely brilliant for those people who don't have Advanced Thema or other plugins which make it better. So something that I think they should work on. I'm going to show you, and then what I'm going to do is also create a starting point. I've created an AI prompt which gives us a base starting point framework that we can pull into Bricks and get us started if we don't have any other plugins or any other frameworks that give that to us. So I'm going to work through that and say this is what I think we need as a base to work in Bricks effectively. Okay, so I'm going to get started by just saying I've got a base 2.0 install here. I've just installed the 2.0 update that came through last night in my plugins. All I have is WP reset, so I can reset back to the beginning when I'm done. And in my pages, I just have the standard WordPress pages. So I've got absolutely nothing apart from I've installed WordPress, I've installed WP reset, and I've installed Bricks 2.0. And I did do a couple of settings in the Bricks settings as well. All right, so what I'm going to do is add a new page. I'm going to just call this demo and edit that with Bricks. And whenever you start fresh with Bricks, if you're not using a framework that does this for you, the first thing you need to do is create a theme. So we're going to go into our manage theme. So this is a new layout in Bricks 2.0 where we got the new settings layout over here. So we go into our themes, click on the theme style. There's nothing there. We're just going to type demo and press the enter key. And we've got a new theme, which is automatically set to be for the entire website. Now the colors is what I was just talking about. So none of this has changed. Basically, you click on colors, and for a new user, this is confusing. This is absolutely confusing. You've got a bunch of primary, secondary, dark color. Okay, where do I get my colors from? Okay, so you got to click on the little picker, and there's the default colors. So you might be thinking as a new user, so is this all the colors I get? Can I change any of these? Can I do anything? Realistically, you need to create a new, so you don't mess up your defaults, you need to create a new one. And to do that, you got to go down to the bottom here, click on the plus, give it a name. I'll just call this demo and hit create. Right, and when you do that, it goes back to the default. So you've just created a brand new color theme, a color palette, and it goes straight back to the default, which is, I don't understand that. Okay, so we then have to go into demo, then we go have to edit, and then we have to say we want that to be our default color theme. Okay, and then you got to hit save. So lots of extra figuring out and clicking for something that should be just done from a single menu. Okay, now to create a color, you have to go and change one of these sliders. Again, it's not obvious. So you change the slider, you get a little swatch up here, and you get the save button. As soon as you hit the save button, I've got a swatch up here, but what's this called? It's just a swatch with a color. I don't know how, it's called. How do I edit it? If I right click, nothing happens. If I left click, nothing happens. What do I do? Now, For a newbie, this is confusing. You have to go over and click on this little list edit icon here, this tiny little thing over here, and then you get a color 1. So it just calls it color 1. Now, even worse is that when you look at the actual variable it creates for that, it's bricks color random string. So if you're going to use this in CSS, you don't know this is your primary, secondary, color 1, whatever. This is just a random string, and you have to know that random string to be able to use that in CSS. Ridiculous. So let's say we want to edit this. We double click on that, nothing happens. We can't edit it by double clicking or clicking in here. Now, everything else in bricks, like the structure panel, the settings, you just click in there and you edit. But with the colors, no, you can't. So how do I edit this? I've got to go and click on this little pencil. When I clicked on the pencil, did anything change in the UI to indicate that it's editable? Nothing changed at all. But it is now editable. So I click over here and now I can edit it. So I call this my primary. Now, typically in a UI, you would press the enter key, save. No, doesn't work. Enter key doesn't work. So you've got to wander over to the right-hand side and you've got to click on the tick to save that. Now I have a primary color of that hue, saturation, lightness, etc. And the variable is called bricks color MYBLSC. This is a major weak point in bricks. I think it is probably something that was put together early days. Looks good, looks fash, but it is a major weak point. It should be redone. All right, now I'm going to now actually delete this because I'm going to show you a much better way. So I'm going to go into there. I'm going to delete my color palette there. So I'm just back to my primary color. So now I'm just back to just creating a new demo theme. In fact, I'm just going to undo all of that. Back to a new demo theme where all I've got is a theme called demo and no settings in there. I'm going to show you a better way to get started. And that is, we're going to use ChatGPT or whatever AI you use. I'm going to open a new tab, go to ChatGPT. I've got a prompt here that I've created, which I'm going to share through a gist for you. And the thing I find with ChatGPT, I don't know, I don't use Claude or anything like that because I think GPT does pretty much what I need at this stage. But what I found is that every time you ask, particularly a complex prompt, every time you ask ChatGPT a question or a prompt, it behaves differently every time. So I've tried to work with this prompt and get it to be as consistent as possible, and it just isn't. But the outcome at the end of it is exactly what I need. So you just need to read through and understand what it's asking you or telling you as you work through the prompt, because I can't tell you what it's going to say because it changes every single time you use it. So you basically paste that prompt in there, hit the send arrow, and that's going to ask some questions. All right, so see this here as an example. Basically, I've told it to ask these 5 questions and then wait for my answer before going to the next one. What did it do? It asked those 5 questions and then it asked the next questions as well, or the next question as well. That's not supposed to happen. I keep asking ChatGPT to revise its prompt to make sure that it asks that and waits, and sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So because it's asked both, I can answer both these questions, or I can just answer the first one and then press the send key and then answer the next one. So I'm happy with, this is for spacing, by the way, the first one, I should have mentioned that. So I'm happy with my, for my spacing on my mobile size, I want my base spacing to be 10 pixels. On my, sorry, that's wrong. On my, my HTML 1 rem font size is 10 pixels, which is the default in bricks. I'm going to leave it on that. I'm happy with having my mobile breakpoint for my clamps at 380 pixels for a mobile. I'm happy with having the desktop at 1600 for a mobile. I'm happy with my minimum size being 10. No, I'm not. I want that to be 10, so I'm going to grab my min size in pixels. Just copy that word, put it in there. I'm just going to put a, oops, picked up an extra character. I want that to be, for my desktop, sorry, for mobile, I want that to be 10 pixels. I'm going to use Shift Enter so I get a new line. And on desktop, what I want that to be is max size in pixels. And you can update this prompt to whatever you want. Max size, I'll say 20 pixels on a desktop size. I'm happy with 1600 pixels for my breakpoint for desktop. So what that's going to be is a clamp where between 380 and 1600, it's going to scale. Below 380, it's going to be 10 pixels, and above 1600, it's going to be 20 pixels. And I would say others default. I'll just say others default, meaning the other answers here are my default. And I can press the send key here now, or I could just answer that second question because it's on the screen. All right, so let's say for my spacing, I want really big spacing gaps. So this is the mathematical formula it's going to use to work out how much difference is there between my spacing. So I'm going to use the perfect fifth, put those in there, and then press the send key. All right, so it's telling me, okay, this is what it's got, and it's going to use the spacing ratio of perfect fifth, which is approximately a ratio of 1.5. Okay, it's generating a clamp, which is going to be my base clamp. So that is the base clamp, which is going to be based around our 380 pixel to 1600 pixels from 10 pixel size to 20 pixel size at desktop. And that's it, done, and it's outputting what it's finding so far. And then it's basically now going to ask me for my primary color, and it'll generate secondary, it'll generate some light and dark based on this as a starting point. So I'm just going to make up a color here. So maybe 22 AA 55, that'll do. Whoop, that should be a hash. Whoops. Not at. Hash 22 AA 55. Press the enter key, or press the send key. And it's going to say, okay, this is your primary in HSL. There's a light and dark version. I told it to do that so you can use those for your hover effects for buttons, etc. And it automatically creates a secondary, which won't be what you want, but you can change it. Creates a light and a dark as well. Okay, now it's going to ask for the same questions it did at the beginning for my typography. So that's okay. Min font size 15 pixels, max is 18 pixels. That's pretty much what I want from a typography. If not, you just copy the wording and say, I want to change that. Okay, do you want to use the same defaults for the breakpoints? Yes, I do. The typography scale ratio. So I use the, I think the perfect fifth for my spacing. I think that might be too much for my typography. So I'm just going to use the minor third here and press the enter key. Okay, which is a ratio of 1.25. So the perfect fourth was 1.5. The ratio on this is 1.25. So that's the difference that you're going to get between your typography sizes. Okay. Yes, it's asking me, do you want to share those? It doesn't always ask this. This is the thing with chat. I'll just say yes. It's basically saying, do we use the same viewport for your clamp from 380 to 1600? And I'll just say yes. Okay, so now it's gone away and thinking about it, and it's going to create it's outputting in this as variables on the screen. So you can copy and paste. It's now going to also create grids. That's part of the prompt. It's going to create 12 column grids. And now it's compiling, and this time it created a JSON file, and it doesn't always do that at the end. Sometimes you got to go, yes, it'll ask you if you want to create the JSON. You say, yes, I told you to create the JSON, please do it. We'll just say yes. Okay, so I'm now going to download that. So I'm going to click on that and download it. And I'm going to bricks clamp variables JSON, make sure there's no other file in there with that name. So I've saved that file. And now we've created a starter point for, as far as variables go, for using in Bricks Builder. Now you can extend this, and you can actually even make a much more complex prompt and say, create a theme JSON, create a color palette JSON. You can do all that sort of stuff in here if you want to. I'm just going to go into, now I've got the JSON, I'm going to go into back to my builder, go into classes and variables, go to my variables. I'm going to import, select the file, grab that file I just created with ChatGPT, and ask me if I want to create the categories as well. I said, okay. So it's imported 42 of 42 variables and created 4 categories for those. All right, brilliant. So now we've got our spacing. We've got space, XSS, all the way up to 4XL. We've got some utility classes or some contextual ones for our section padding, our gutter, container gaps, content gaps, got some colors that it created. Now, if you don't like these colors, simple. You go into bricks, click on there. This is a new editor in 2.0. One thing I don't like about this is there's no way to copy any of these values. You basically set the value. So if I've got 3 versions of it and I just want to copy my hue, I can't do that. I can't do that from here. I've just got to note it and then type it in here. So for example, if I change that hue there, I'm not really happy with that green. Let's say we want to go more towards sort of this bluish color, maybe there. Actually, we'll go the other way. Go towards that sort of mustardy color there. Now I've got a hue of 68, right? But I can't copy that to update these others. So I'm going to hit save. And I've just got to go back to these, and I've got to manually go into there and just click on that and put 68 in there, and 68. No big deal, but you know, being able to just copy these values would be beneficial. So okay, so I've got some colors created. I've got some typography sizes created based on my scales. So here's my base clamp. At any point, you could go and go, okay, I'm just going to use an online clamp generator, and I'm going to create a new clamp that has a new viewpoint, mobile and desktop values, or I want to change the size of the font at the mobile value. You just use an online clamp generator, copy and paste that clamp into there. All of these others are multipliers, so they just automatically update. All right, and then we have our grid, our basic grid of 1 through to 12 as a standard grid. This is a really good starting point, right? And it doesn't take us that long. Without me gibbering, this would have taken you probably less than a minute, right, to get to this point. Now that's just variables. So let's go back to our colors that were not great to manage with the bricks UI here. We still have to use that UI to do our mapping, because these here, these primary, secondary, light, dark, that all maps to your buttons and whatever elements use those in bricks. So we need to still use these, but we need to set those up to use our variables. So I'm going to go into here. I'm going to go click on there. I'm going to go create a new palette again, call this demo. And by the way, once you've done these, you can export these and then just import them. You don't need to do this every time. So we go back again, go to our demo, going to go into edit, going to set that to the default. Brilliant, brilliant. Okay, here we go. Now, instead of using these hue sliders, what we do is we go to our raw, and we're going to use the variables that we created. So we're going to use primary. Here's our primary. Okay, hit save. Primary. There's our primary light. So this is pulling that from the variables that we created. I'll just go through each of these. Primary dark, save, secondary, dark, light. Oops, what happened there? We disappeared. Secondary dark, save. And I think we've got 2 more. You probably want to create some grays in there as well, but I'm just going to do the ones that we've just created using ChatGPT. And you can update your prompt to create more colors, or you might say create, a range of grays, with 6 steps or something like that, from this value to that value. And you can do the same thing here. So we hit save on that. So we've got a bunch of palettes here. We need to now go into our list edit, and we need to name these because they don't name very well. So we're going to call that primary. Just going to copy that to the clipboard and go through our little routine of clicking buttons and check boxes and whatnot to get saved these. Whoops, that's not primary as well. We want that to be primary light. And dark. Secondary. Copy that to the clipboard. That's our light. Just work through these. Not long to go. This is going to be a light. This is going to be our dark. All right, so we've got some named colors now, and these colors, if you look at any of these, so for example, I look at the secondary, I look at my raw, it goes to a named variable that we created with ChatGPT and put into the variable manager, and we can go to our CSS and we can use this now. First of all, I'm going to put these colors on all of these defaults and bricks, so that's got to be our primary. That's got to be our, see that? I told it to be demo as default, but every time I go into it, it brings up the other one, which is not what I want. So that should be our secondary. Go into our light color, and we've got to go back to demo. So it's not, even though I set it as the default, in this editor, it's not selecting it as the default. So that's our light color, dark color. Okay, so there's our, I haven't bothered with all these others yet, but that's our primary, secondary, light, and dark done. We might also want to actually chuck some things on, like buttons on the screen. So let's just do that to see what they look like. Let's just grab a section in there. Inside that section, we're just going to add some buttons. Right there. I'm so used to using AT. This is not easy for me. So there's a button, there's another button. We'll make that our secondary, make that our light, make that our dark. Okay, so we've got the 4 colored buttons. So we go back into our theme styles, elements. We want to go to our button, and on our primary button there, let's go to the primary. What we want to do is we want to change some state. So let's go to our hover state. So this is a new location in Bricks 2.0, which is good. It's not up on the top menu here. So we go to here and we go to our hover state. And what do we want our hover state? Let's change our typography to be color light. It can be white, whatever you like. And that's not even updating in the build. Oh, here we go. You hover. Oh, that's interesting. So in Bricks 1, when you select that state there, it changes the state in the editor. In Bricks 2, it doesn't change the state in the editor. So we've actually got to hover for that. Actually, I didn't want the hover state, did I? I'm going to get rid of that. We wanted the default state because that color is no good to us. Let's go to our light on there. And then we go to our hover states. So there's our light. Go to our hover state. We're going to change the background color to be either dark or the light version. Let's go to the dark version. So now when we hover our button, we've got a hover state. Okay, we need to do the same with our secondary. So we're on the hover there, just go to the background and we'll change the secondary to dark. So now we've got our hover state on those two. On our light, we don't have it there yet, so let's go to our light. We don't have a interim color for that, so I'm not sure what we're going to do with that. Background color on our lights. Let's just set that to a primary light for now. And we'll do the same on the dark. We need to create some more colors. That's pretty much what I'm seeing here. On our dark, for our hover state, we want to make that the same. So both of these go to the primary on the primary light on the hover state. Okay, so we've done buttons. Now the next thing we need to do is look at our spacing by default. So let's create another section. We'll put a section in there. We're going to put in a block, and in that block we'll just put a heading and some text in there inside the block, not outside of the block. And let's duplicate the container so we can have a look at what's happening with that. So we've got a section, 2 containers. Each of those containers has a block inside it with some content in it. Now let's go to our theme, go to our theme settings, go to our elements. And the first thing we'll look at is our section. And we want to set some padding top and bottom. So I'm going to link the opposite sides. You can use this variable picker. We can just start typing section padding block. Okay, and that was created automatically for us by ChatGPT. And we can certainly change that just by going into the variables editor up here. And on the sides here, we want gutter. there's our gutter on the sides there. So we've got some gutter spacing so we don't hit the sides when we when we shrink the screen. All right, now the other thing we want to do with our our section, sorry, is we want to space out our containers. So I'm going to go to the row gap. I'm going to start typing container, and we have a container gap. Okay, so that has now got a gap between our containers, and that's all we need to do for the section as far as I'm concerned. So let's go to our container now. Now, I probably should have named things a little bit differently as I'm thinking through this. We don't want to add inside our containers, we don't need any padding or spacing or anything like that. We do want to have some gaps. So I'm going to put in there, I don't think I put a block gap. I think I probably should do, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. I'm just going to use one of my spacing values or content. So I was going to use a type gap, and these are the gaps that it created. So let's say between our blocks, we want to use content gap. No, we want it bigger. So maybe we use content gap L between our blocks. And we're going to use that for both the column and for the row. So we can get some gap between our blocks in our containers. If I add another block in here, we should see, if I go back to my theme and go into my elements and go into my container. Okay, that should have gap between those blocks. I'm not sure why it doesn't. We'll have to come back to that. All right, so let's go to the blocks. And on the blocks, all we want to do again is we just want some column gapping. And so I'm just going to type gap. We're just going to use our content gap inside of our blocks. Okay, now we've got content gap inside of our blocks, but we haven't got gap between the blocks. Let's save that and have a look in the front end and see what's going on. Okay, so what do we got here? We've got our blocks. Here's our container. Oh, it's telling us content gap L is not defined. Why is it not defined? Why is it not defined? Let's have a look in here at our spacing. Did I miss one of the dashes? I did, because I manually put it in there. So there we go. So content gap in my section. Oops. We go to the theme settings, not the actual element. So in my section, I've got container gap. In my container, I missed a dash. So any variations, using BEM thinking for class naming, basically you have a name of something which identifies what it is, and any modifier or variation of that, you do 2 dashes and then the large, small, etc. That's just the methodology I've come to. Now that's all working as we would expect. Right, so that's it. We're at a point where we can actually work with this. You can export this theme if you want to, export the palettes if you want to, and then you can import that the next time. Now, the other thing I did with the prompt in ChatGPT is I've told the prompt to remember the IDs that it creates for your variables and for your categories between sessions, so that you can come back to this prompt and go, actually, I want to change the typography scale, or I want to change the colors, or whatever you want to do in here. You can change those, re-export it, import it, and it won't create a new set. It will actually overwrite the existing set because all the IDs will be the same. So that's all good to go. All right, let's have a look now what we can do. So we're started, right? Now I'm going to now clear everything, and I'm going to start creating some content. So I'm going to create a section inside that container there. I'm going to, I miss AT with all these shortcuts in here. So here in the container, I'm going to create a block, and inside that block, I'm just going to add another block, and we're going to call this a grid. I'll call this test grid. Oh my goodness, typos. Test grid. Call this a cell. Okay, in that cell, we're just going to put, maybe we'll just throw we'll just throw a heading, some basic text, and maybe a button in there. Okay, and we'll call this a body text. Okay, here's a really basic grid. So we're going to use the test grid, and I don't have a BEM creator, which we do with advanced theming, so I'm going to have to create that manually. So I'm just going to call that test grid. So they haven't borrowed that from AT yet. Probably won't be long before they borrow that, like everything else. Okay, I'm going to now paste that in there and create that as an element. Cell. Create that as a heading. So we're just creating classes based on BEM methodology. Body text. And actually, I'll call that CTA button. All right, so we have a structure there, and now we can go back to this, go to our test grid, change that to be a grid, and we don't need to put a gap in here. I'll show you why. Like if I click these variables here, and let's say we want this to be a grid of 3. We've got a 3-column grid. It's automatically got the gap in there because inside of our block, if we go into our theme settings, into our theme, into our elements, and go to have a look at our block, we have inside our block all of this is something that's happening in 2.0 that was happening in 1 as well, that I'm not sure when it disappears, but when you're editing in here, all of the flex properties disappear. So I've got to hit the save button. I've got to hit the refresh button. So that's a bug. That's a bug that Bricks need to probably look at. Probably not critical, but it is something they definitely need to look at. So let's go back to our block here, go back to our theme styles, elements. We're on a block, so we look at the block, and now we still don't have our, so I'm going to do the Control F5. Okay, let's go straight to our theme without clicking on anything. Go into our theme styles, go to elements, go to our block, and now we've got all our flex properties here. So it's content gap is what we've got is our gap between these here. Now, if you want that to be different, you want to be bigger, you can change that. We can just do, say, -L, -L. And now we have bigger spacing, but that spacing is also, so it's your gap between these items and your gap between there exactly the same. If you want it to be different, you have to change it. So let's go back and change that now. Go back to our theme settings, back into elements, go to a block. Hopefully our flex hasn't disappeared. It has. So this is something they have to fix. We can't edit these flex settings in here once you've done anything in the editor. So hit save, hit refresh. Let's see if we've got it before we do anything. Okay, let's go to our theme settings, elements, block, and we do have, so it looks like as soon as we touch anything to do with the structure, all of the flex properties disappear in our theme options here. So I'm going to put that back to just content gap. Okay, let's save on that. Now, what we want here, let's actually put a border around that so we can see what's going on. One pixel, solid, and use a, I don't know, just use a primary. Okay, then go to our back layout, and we're going to use one of our variables. Click on there, and it's a spacing variable, and we'll use space S. So we've got some spacing in there as well. Then you might want to add some things like radius and whatnot, but this is just your absolute starting point, right? So I'm going to just duplicate that out. So we've got 2 of those, or 3 of those, so we can see the space. So the space we're seeing there, and that's interesting. So I'm just going to refresh again. We've got some rendering issues going on here. So now I've lost I've got a cell here. Okay, hopefully I can get to my flex in here. Yes, it hasn't disappeared. There we go. I left the L on the row gap, which is why that disappeared. So what we're seeing here is the content gap between our elements inside that block is the same as the spacing gap that we've got in our row and column settings by default. If we want that to be different, we go to that grid there and we go gap, and we want to go into our content gap here. We can use a space there. If maybe we want to make the content gap large. So we've got a large gap between our for our gaps, but we haven't affected our gap inside of our blocks for the inside of the sub blocks, I should say, for the content. So it's a really good starting point. It's not a full-on framework. It's not comprehensive by any means, but it's better than where you start with bricks with having nothing. So anyway, I'm going to share the where I got to with the prompt for this and a gist. And if you guys want to do this, great. If you don't, then get yourself something like Advanced Themer, where you get better color management and you get a framework right from the get-go. You don't have to do any of this because it's all done for you. All right, so I'm going to leave it at that, and hopefully this has value to you and makes you a little bit more productive.